Oh, I didn't know it was going to be a roast. I'm sorry. To say I'm honored is an understatement, and it's almost cliche, but I'm more than honored. I'm embarrassed. I want to thank the incredibly talented Kayleen Weindell and Katie Mae Simpson, who can't be here tonight, the Emerge Board, the Emerge Advisory Committee, and all the wonderful people and entities who have contributed to the success of Emerge over many years now. Nobody gets away with being bold or new or creative or getting credit for any success without acknowledging and admitting that whatever you do is only one step in the inevitable march of progress. A move forward in the grand design of democracy and justice, and a march on the shoulders of so many distinguished predecessors. There's so many shoulders in this room, shoulders I have wept on, shoulders I have leaned on, and shoulders that have given me such a lift whenever I was down. I want to thank Stan, my husband of almost 28 years, a man of big shoulders, who, despite surviving cancer 3 times, gets up every morning with a game face and helps me do what I have to do. Yeah. He does the stuff I forget to do, like check the oil, see if the tires are bald. He makes sure I know where I'm going in the morning, and he catches me before I fall. What you perhaps don't know is that Stan was widowed in his early 40s and left to raise 5 daughters, which is when I came into the picture. And life is, it's fair to say, life has made Stan a feminist. The youngest is not here tonight, and I told her if she didn't show up, I was going to tell this story. She was 4 years old when we met. The girls were 4 to 16 and 6 to 18 when we got married. And 6-year-old was the flower girl at our wedding and all that. And of course we spoiled her. Her mother died young and all that stuff. So we built a Barbie doll condo in the hallway. And I papered it and carpeted it and all the foolish things you do, and girls at least used to do. And the Barbie doll had this tremendous wardrobe, more clothes than stepmom ever had, and Ken dolls with their heads off in the yard. And one time she was 6 and a half, and I came home from the courthouse in Amescott County, and I was dead tired and thinking about whatever, supper and everything. And she's in the hallway putting this Oscar de la Renta dress on the Barbie doll. I leaned over, tired. I said to her, "Lethal, Barbie's getting all dressed up. Where's she going tonight?" Without a hitch, Lisa said, "Well, Barbie had grand jury today." Tonight she's got to go to a Democratic fundraiser. Out of the mouths of girls comes occasional wisdom or observations. Well, it distresses me to think that 50 years it's been since the Equal Pay Act passed, 40 years since Roe v. Wade, 20 years since passage of the Family Leave Act. Women are still emerging from the cocoons of disadvantage and underrepresentation.
That's right.
Jay Leno joked the other night, we got 8 new astronauts picked, and one of them from the state of Maine. 4 men and 4 women. And Jay said, they're looking for equal pay and equal rights. And obviously they know they have to go to another planet to find it. It was a little frustrating to think back on history and how little progress we've made in some respects. In the legislature, well, 7 out of 35, all Democrats, are women. And while there are 47 women in the House, 34 Democrats, we still have fewer than 30% of the membership of the legislature. Fewer committee chairs, no women in legislative leadership. You're reminded of that every day, right? Fewer commissioners, fewer public office holders at many, many levels. From the time the first woman was elected to the Maine House of Representatives in 1923 and until 1976, Nancy, you remember some of this, women in the legislature were usually asked to do such important tasks as collecting money for flowers and gifts, selling tickets to the legislature's spring dance, and choosing the color for the legislative license plate. In 192 years since statehood, Maine has only elected 3 women to the U.S. House of Representatives, 3 women to the U.S. Senate, and no woman as governor, as we know.
Not yet.
Not yet. 4 years ago, we had a woman Senate President, a woman Speaker of the House, a woman Chief Justice who still holds her job, and a woman top cop, Ann Jordan, and a woman Attorney General.
Yeah.
That was 4 years ago. 22 years ago, we had higher numbers in the legislature. 14 years ago and 12 years ago, we had a majority of the Senate Democratic caucus. In 1999, women were 45% of the Maine State Senate, the second highest percentage in the nation. Sharon remembers, Sharon was there. So there were fewer women in the legislature than before. But those who are there because of Emerge. And with Emerge, we will increase our numbers and put more women into the trajectory of leadership in this great state. Last year alone, Emerge grads Sarah Gideon, who I just saw in the parking lot, Maddie Dowtrey, Lizzie Dickerson, Catherine Cassidy, and Lisa Villa won election to the House for the very first time. Emerge grads Aaron Herbig, Annie Graham, Bobby Beavers, and Diane Russell, is here, were re-elected to the House. Emerge grads make 9 of the 34 Democratic women in the House, and we're making great strides because of them in preserving the right to choose our own medical care, the right to choose whether and when to have a family, the right to marry whom we choose. I grumble a lot about too few women in public office. I also grumble about too few women in trial work. My friend Jody Saddleup was a great trial lawyer. And too few women in the professions, too few women in the trades, mechanics, plumbers, electricians, engineers, welders, truck drivers, heavy equipment operators. Where are we? Contractors, construction workers, jobs that carry transferable skills and decent pay. Where are we? Too few women CEOs in business. And we'll never erase the problem of domestic violence until we have greater numbers of women in law enforcement. Think about it. More women in public office will change that because they know that there is no longer anything inconsistent between work of all kinds and womanhood. I come from Western Maine, as was pointed out, and it's a place that is no stranger to women who do unusual and unexpected things. Strong women like Cornelia Thurza Crosby, Matt knows, whose photograph hangs on my wall. Flyby Crosby, who more than 100 years ago became the very first registered Maine guide and a very popular woman popular person at the World's Fair in New York City. Carrie Stevens from Upper Dam, creator of the Gray Ghost streamer fly and 150 other patterns which brought her national fame. Isabel Greenwood, a staunch women's rights advocate whose candle shone under a barrel, her writing and intelligent determination overshadowed by that of her husband, her prominent husband Chester, the inventor of earmuffs, wide-bottom kettles, spring steel rakes, and matchbooks with advertising. There she was fighting for equal rights. He's inventing matchbooks. Okay. I think about these women often, and I wonder, gee, did they ever have time to stop and wonder if they were from Mars or Venus? If I get the right side of my brain in here. Last week, the House Republican leader spoke about Medicaid expansion, health care, in terms of women's brains and men's brains. He referred to the book, Women Are from Venus, Men Are from Mars, a 21-year-old book written by some man to justify the differences in the sexes. And the Republican leader said in voting against health care that he was putting his man's brain on. I thought about that last weekend. It was a good weekend for fishing with friends, accompanied by a bottle of wine, deck of cards, good books, occasional gossip. Some of you have been there with me. Say, who did she end up marrying, whatever happened to him, how's the fishing at Cannebago this year? And there we were, a bunch of aging sun worshippers, sitting on a rocking dock, and throwing out an occasional line to tempt a school of stupid perks that were too short to keep and too bony to eat. And I thought, what is this Mars-Venus thing? I'm definitely from the Earth. I thought, we're no different. Men, women, old, young, straight, or gay. I know my toes hit the same cold water in the spring. I know my nose senses the same sweetness, the same nostalgia, the same comforts and dangers. I know my ears hear the same whippoorwills in the morning, the same mill whistles, shotgun sounds, fire horns, and love songs. I know we have the same sighs of appreciation and the same cries for help. These are earthbound sights and sounds. We come from the same mud and return to the same graves, and we have the same capabilities, the same sometimes culpable spirits, the same responsibilities to be kind, to be strong, to learn, and to understand, to contribute as much as possible to our communities and to our world. The difference is not in our abdomens, in our chests, in our hair, or our lips. The difference is in our shoulders. It's the shoulders of my grandmothers I remember the most vividly. Whatever they were wearing, they held their shoulders high, pitched back and proud, like they weren't afraid to carry whatever load life had for them. These were not the bones and sinews of the helpless. These were the struts and beams and the biology of the hardy. My mother, born in northern Maine in a Republican stronghold, died at age 93, a Democrat. Her shoulders still strong from lifting barrels on a farm, from carrying 5 babies into toddlerhood, from lugging books, from conducting aerobics in thousands of English classes to stimulate young minds and drive communication skills into them. I look to the shoulders of women like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a small woman of small stature but a legal giant, and one of Glamour magazine's Women of the Year this year. An icon who more than any other person can take credit for making the laws of this country work for women. A truly transformational figure and an inspiration. I wonder about the progress we've made and the progress we've not made, and sometimes I get kind of frustrated. Then last month, an interesting thing happened. This 12-year-old middle schooler from Farmington begged to spend a day with me. I don't know why. I thought she'd be bored stiff. No, she says, I have to job shadow somebody. So I picked her up at her house early in the morning, and I learned on the way to Augusta she already knew about Hardy Girls, Healthy Women. She was already excited about the great things that were possible in her life. And an only child with no competitors, she read widely and developed ambitions and goals and visions for a future yet uncluttered by teenage distractions. And I thought, what can I possibly show her? So for a whole day, she shadowed me without comment, her eyes wide open. I hustled her around the State House, to the Senate, and the House of Representatives, and the lobby, and then through endless warrens and cubicles of my office, and meeting busy attorneys and staff, enduring endless meetings about arcane statutes and possible lawsuits, and press advisories, regulations, and investigations. And I assumed she was bored silly and just missed her friends at school. But weeks later, she sent me a thank you, and she included the report she had read aloud to her class. I was a little astonished and a little embarrassed. And here's what she wrote. So, she worked hard at this. She said, I'll read excerpts. The Attorney General and her staff occupy the top two floors of the Cross Building. Everyone on those top 2 floors' job is to help her. Really? She obviously wasn't listening. She has her secretary's office right outside hers, and she keeps the door open at all times so she can yell out into the hall she needs staple removal. No one finds this rude or weird. It's actually kind of fun. Look at the stream of consciousness. It's actually kind of fun. It reminded me of when I skied 25K in a race, and when I skied past people, they handed me water or cookies, and when you were done with the cup, you just threw it on the ground. It was just giddy to pick it up for me. makers and pizza that doesn't smell like feet. High-class middle schoolers, the ones who work their butts off, but you're still not sure how all of them got there. Some of the Senate or House members are just not the kind of people I just want to work with. Others I feel privileged to have. Still, there they are. No matter where you go in life, there'll be people you just want nothing to do with. Just like I, as a person in this school, has to deal with people they don't like. Also, there's lots of talking behind people's backs, lots of misquoted quotations, lots of mean, angry men in expensive suits and passive-aggressive, annoying women in heels. She tells me each pile is a case she's working on. All I have to say is Janet Mills is the best freaking multitasker in the world. I counted at least 30 piles before I gave up. And she says, being Attorney General is a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of highlighting and bright pink sticky notes. It's a lot of messages on your cell. It's a lot of trying to find the right words. A lot of treading lightly and trying not to offend the Senate. That one person you can't stand. It's a lot of working late. You have to be a person reader. You have to know what ticks people off before you have said a word to them. You have to, wait a minute. You have to be thick-skinned, have self-restraint, because you hear people talking about you behind your back, because when you're the Attorney General, you're constantly asked to give statements. People will disagree with you, and they will say, not nice things. Really? And I didn't introduce her to the governor. And in the end, you have to have incredible work ethic, yada, yada, yada. You have to make this job your main thing and want it enough to give up sleep or a party. This is why I believe I can be successful at this job. The end thing, my opinion didn't change at all 12 years old. I'm not the kind of person who likes something just because it sounds pretty. I knew what I was walking into. I wanted it just as much as I did a week ago, but seeing it just made it more real to me. It's just waiting for me. Out of the mouths of girls sometimes comes a bit of wisdom. There's hope for this world. When I read that a few times and got done laughing, I then felt the pride, the strength, and the courage that we all have inside us, in our heads, in our hearts, and in our shoulders. So thank you for this honor. Thank you, Emerge members and supporters, for all you do to carry the rest of us on your shoulders. Thank you.